Last project for this course is the UX AI project to fight climate change. That's the focus I wanted to put on it because it's the one I used for the second project. So remember, our assignment is to do UX UI with an AI perspective, and this is how I'm going to do it. So in the problem overview, the problem focuses on motivating individuals to let their lawns go wild to fight climate change by using AI-provided tailored recommendations. This is the subject of my second project. This highlights the importance of tracking climate change through small-scale actions, because most people, when they get actions of like, what do I do about climate change myself, the suggestions are too broad, they're too vague. This wants to do right to your house. This is what you can do as an individual. So my task analysis, we encourage users to let their lawns grow naturally by providing personalized AI-driven recommendations. So part of that is, right, our user identification, determine user demographics and environmental factors. What neighborhoods, what's their climate like? Data collection, gather data on their local climate, their regs, if there are any exist, lawn characteristics like the type of grass that you use. Recommendation of generation, use AI to analyze the data and provide specific advice. Hey, you live here. This is what we think you should do. User interaction, users receive recommendations via their mobile or web app. This mostly just focuses on a mobile app, but it could have web applications because it's an API. Action tracking, track actions taken by users and measure impact. So insights for simplification and improvement, okay, that's great. How can we make this easier? We can streamline the data input processes for users by integrating location-based data automatically. Yeah, I put in there, there's my zip code, there's the street, bow, right? And there's a lot more in there that it can give automatically that's just an aggregate from your area. We can also engage user engagement with visual aids and real-time feedback on their impact on carbon reduction. This, by the way, also do UX, UI. This is what we call gamification. When you see something and you can make a change immediately and you get a feedback, that's gamification. That's how all social media works. Gamification would be great in this, but it's a little more difficult, but it would be a great idea for improvement. So user experience design, the next couple of slides are going to talk about our UX design. User interaction with proposed solutions. So the interface, right, I wish I'm going to do an iOS app just to get it out, is to develop a mobile app with an intuitive interface. Users enter basic information, receive recommendation, take actions, get feedback. It all happens through the app. This is just a quick mock-up of the app. I didn't do this. I had an AI do this for me, but it would be something that I would try out. Simple, big letters, simple buttons, maybe even less than that. You put in your location, recommendations, boom, it gets started right away. So key considerations with this, right? Users input minimal data, receive recommendations, and provide feedback on their actions. When it's required, we use very simple interactions within the app, like spinners for dates, short input fields, all fully accessible for our accessibility people, like hard of sight, mobility issues, all of that. Like right here, like the amount of rain, it's just a slider, time of day is a slider, estimated CO2, like what do you think it is, the type of plant you have, like really, really, really simple stuff. So the transparency on the model, right? We clearly explain how recommendations are generated using simple language and visuals. We explain the model as best as possible without burying them in jargon, but they can see it if they want. We communicate uncertainty, right? Indicate our confidence levels of recommendations and explain potential outcomes, right? Getting CO2 estimates that come from plants, you usually do that by weighing the plant after you're done, and that can vary with water. Rainfall is not always accurately corrected or recorded. Carbon dioxide levels in your area change a lot. When plants photosynthesize, the CO2 to O2 isn't always perfect. Stuff like that. There's always an uncertainty in this. So privacy considerations, and this is going to be the bulk of the rest of this, right? Data collection is sensitive information such as location and personal preferences. Data will be linked to their account, but we can only see it in aggregates. And we use two-factor identification to see that, so that we encrypt it on our side. They have the decryption key so that they can only see what they have in there. They're the only ones who can see what they have in there. We see it as an aggregate that's anonymized. Data usage, right? Ensure data is used solely for generating recommendations and improving their models, not for sales, not to push something else. The applicable laws that we have that will hit into these things are the General Data Protection Regulation, right? We need to ensure user consent for their collection, provide access to their data, and ensure that's portability. It means that they can take their data with them. and the California Consumer Privacy Act allow users to opt out of data selling and provide transparency about what happens with their data if they do allow it to be sold. Which brings up ethical considerations, right? The main potential sources are bias. There's data bias. We need to ensure that diverse data sources to avoid demographic and geographical biases, i.e. don't get all the data from one neighborhood. The algorithm bias, regularly test and validate that to make sure that to mitigate biases in our recommendations. So how do we do that? We use diverse data collection. We gather it from a wide range of sources to ensure it represents different geographic locations, socioeconomic statuses, and environmental conditions. It can't all be from the upper middle class neighborhood. It can't all be from the neighborhood that's right next to the stream. It can't all be from the neighborhood that's right next to the road. Or we have to mix these around to make sure that our model is representing a broad swath area. We test our biases by implementing tools to detect and measure in the model. We regularly audit the model to make sure the outputs are fair treatment of all of the users. That would be breaking off into testing and regular. Inclusive design, we include a diverse group of stakeholders in the design and testing phases to get feedback from various perspectives. I did a lot of accessibility work and need to make sure that there are people who have mobility issues, have sight issues, have any kind of usability issue, must be able to use this app. Without question, if you don't, that is biased. So also for more considerations, right? So how do we ensure our accountability, right? How does this make it accountable? So we have clear documentation. We document the data sources, the model training processes, and decision-making logic of the entire system. This includes keeping a record of all the old versions of the model and the data used. We provide users with control over their data and how it is used, and we allow them to opt out or delete the data if they choose. Like, hey, it's your data, you can bounce whenever you want. Feedback mechanisms. We create a robust feedback system where users can report issues or biases. This also helps us debug. This feedback should be reviewed regularly and used to improve the model. So what are the actions, right? So regular audits, we make sure we check the audit of the system often. We set up a governance framework, right? That's part of the user control. We establish a framework that includes ethical guidelines, regular reviews, accountability measures for all stakeholders involved in the project. And transparency then of the reports. We publish transparency reports that detail the performance of the AI, including any identified biases and steps that we take to address them. Hey, we saw a bias here. We are aware of this. This is how we're going to mitigate it in the next iteration. Continue. I know there's a lot of ethics here. Continuing communicating their transparency. Hey, how do we do this? We explain the AI to everybody. This is how we do it in simple language that's easy to understand. We communicate the uncertainty, like we said before, right? Some of this is going to be uncertain. This is how much it's going to go. We expect you to take this as advice, not like as in law. There's a lot that we will improve as we iterate through. And then, of course, user education, which is always important for any technical system. Provide educational resources that explain how the AI works, that it's not Skynet. All it's doing is trying to lower your carbon emissions. What data does it use, and how can users interpret its recommendations? What does it actually mean in English to them, or whatever language they're in? So those actions would be like design the user interface to include transparency elements. What that means is like tooltips, information icons, things that pop up to explain what's going on behind the scenes. A transparency policy, develop and publish transparency policy that outlines how the AI operates, how it's used, and how users understand that. Again, here's everything. You can see under the hood how the sausage is made. It's all there for you. You probably don't want to see it, but we're allowing you to. And open data access again, where possible, make anonymized data sets and model information available to the public for scrutiny and research, and encourage them to do so. One of the big things about open source software is that the community was the ones that went through it and said, hey, your code's busted here, it doesn't work here, I don't like what you're doing here. You can iterate that into your software and make it better. And our models will always improve the more our community works on it. And that is all I have for that. Thank you very much.